Another strategy you can attempt from this point is the T2 air rush. So for that you'll need a lot of NGs at your air factory. So take a couple of these factories and have them spam NGs to your air factory. You will need a lot of power for this to get free NGs to make more PGens. Make sure as you're doing this your ACU doesn't die. And then we'll stop whatever the factory is doing and go T2 with it. First unit you want to go with T2 is the T2 NG. Opens you up to a lot of new technologies. And as before, if you have a whole bunch of excess mass, just take it on the mass extractor and start upgrading it. In this strategy, make sure you always keep an eye on your power and get as many PGens and many NGs on your factory. You want to make this transition to T2 as fast as possible. This is when you're most vulnerable against good players. If they do a T1 rush or just have their ACU at your base, you're very vulnerable. But once you get the T2 NG up, you can get some T2 PDs up for defense. So our power is still doing pretty good, so we'll put even more NGs on the factory and get the ACU out of the field just to make it more realistic. So if you have air control, which you shouldn't since we haven't made too much air, Aeon especially, you have a nice combat fighters, you have swift ones, so we'll make a couple of those. With this NG you make T2 PD for defense, so you can make power, T2 power. For now we'll just make 5 swift ones, and then we'll make gunships. You can also make mercies if your player is a noob, or if they don't have a lot of flak with their ACU. If they're rushing you with an ACU, mercies are actually very good. See all these NGs at the factory, get them all to help the factory. So there's a swift wind. T2 air, this will really help you capture air back. Of course, don't forget about T1. You never want to go just one thing, but you definitely can't win the game with T1 with this strategy. Always scout, as with any strat. You can actually see they have the gun T2 air, but Aeon has better T2 air. Of course, with all these strats, it's a question of what faction you have, what faction you're facing. So that's kind of where the game comes in. Against the weak AI, you can do whatever you want. Now you can see here some NGs are confused about packing. You can have the NGs that are wandering around guard one of the NGs which is not confused, and you can see what happens. All the NGs stop. See the situation here, and now they all guard. It's a small trick. And as before, excess mass, upgrade mass extractors. And if it's getting late in the game, you can go ahead and get your ACU back. Any NGs just laying around, have them reclaim. Okay, so it looks like I forgot to make units that kill. The best thing to do with gunships is to get a group of them. So let me get a group of 5 gunships together somewhere where your enemy doesn't see them, somewhere away from your base, so it's a surprise. So they don't have time to make a few flags. A T2 flag, if they have T2, they only have air. If they had T2 ground, T2 flag is really a very good counter to any T2 air strats. You can see the fact that we spammed quite a bit of power saved us from having big energy deficits here. This strat takes much more power than all the other strats we've done so far. Any strats that I'll show. So now we have 5 T2 gunships, and you want to just raid everything around. You really want to micro these well. Since this AI doesn't have much flak, we'll just go directly after the ACU. Another good unit that Aeon has is the Mercy. That's what we're going to do to these guys. So air strats are definitely, if you do them fast, they're very effective, but they're pretty easy to counter. You can see how good the swift ones are against air. We basically have air control now. see the mercies moving in. Takes about 5 usually, depending on the ACU. So red's dead. And now the mercies will take care of. So with the other factions, it would be T2 bombers. Seraphim T2 bombers are very good. With Aeon, it's really pretty unfair. Of course, these are pretty easy to counter if the other player makes T1 air, T2 air. They're very weak. So hopefully this was useful. Oh, what a strong ACU. You can see this strategy is weak in terms of control of the map. You can get attacked pretty easily.